Don't lose yourself in a relationship. It's so easy to fall into the idea that love means giving everything, your time, your energy, your heart, your soul. You start to prioritize their needs over yours, their dreams over yours, their comfort while ignoring your discomfort, and without even realizing it, you slowly start fading into the background of your own life. You compromise, then you bend, and eventually you break, not because they asked you to, but because somewhere along the way, you believed that losing pieces of yourself was the price you had to pay to be loved. Real love doesn't ask you to sacrifice your identity. It doesn't demand that you erase who you are so someone else can feel more secure. It doesn't require you to mute your voice, tame your passions, or shrink your soul. If being in love makes you feel small, invisible, or unheard, then that's not love, it's a warning. You are not supposed to disappear just because someone else has arrived. Your presence still matters. Your needs are still valid. Your dreams still deserve to breathe. A relationship should never be a cage where you lock away your true self. It should be a space that supports your growth, your freedom, your individuality. You should be able to stand tall in your own truth while holding someone else's hand. You should feel seen, not just looked at. You should feel chosen every day, not because you change yourself to be loved, but because you're loved for exactly who you are. The moment you start pretending, performing, or pleasing just to maintain peace, you've already begun to lose the most important relationship you'll ever have, the one with yourself. Stop giving away your voice in the name of love. Stop dimming your light so someone else doesn't feel overwhelmed by your brilliance. Stop settling for half love, broken love, confused love, just because you're afraid to be alone. You were not made to be a reflection of someone else's needs. You were made to be whole, to be powerful, to be deeply grounded in who you are. When you hold on to your identity, your values, and your self-respect, you don't just protect your peace. You attract the kind of love that honors your presence without asking you to disappear. You are whole, not a half looking to be completed. From the moment we're young, we're fed this narrative that there's someone out there who will complete us, who will make us whole, who will fix everything that feels broken inside. Movies, songs, and stories have romanticized the idea that love is about finding your other half, but this belief quietly convinces us that we are not enough on our own. It plants the idea that something is missing within us until another person arrives to fill that void. But the truth is, no one can complete you because you were never incomplete to begin with. Believing that another person holds the key to your completeness creates unhealthy expectations. It puts a weight on relationships that they were never designed to carry. It makes your happiness someone else's responsibility. And when that person disappoints you, as all humans eventually do, you begin to feel like you're crumbling, like you're losing a part of yourself. But what if your sense of self was never rooted in another, but in the deep knowing that you are already enough? When you approach a relationship from a place of wholeness, you're not seeking someone to fix or fulfill you. You're not begging for validation or shrinking yourself to be loved. Instead, you are showing up as someone who knows who they are and is willing to share that space with another whole person. You are not entering love to be saved, but to share a life, to grow, to expand, to evolve together without compromising who you are. That kind of love isn't based on need, it's based on mutual respect and freedom. When you forget your own worth, you begin to mold yourself to fit someone else's expectations. You begin to think you're too much or not enough, and you start changing your essence just to be accepted. But when you embrace your wholeness, you stop chasing approval and start choosing alignment. You stop asking who will complete you and start asking who aligns with the person you already are. You walk into relationships not with desperation, but with clarity, not with fear of being alone, but with love for your own presence. You attract not from lack, but from overflow, and your connections become deeper, more honest, and more rooted in truth, sacrifice, doesn't mean self-erasure. In relationships, we often hear about the importance of compromise, about giving up certain things for the sake of love, about bending so the bond doesn't break. But there's a difference between healthy sacrifice and abandoning yourself entirely. Love should never ask you to silence your voice, dim your light, or lose touch with the person you were before the relationship began. There is a quiet danger in constantly putting someone else's needs above your own, because over time, you start to forget what your own needs even were. You wake up one day realizing you've been fading, piece by piece, trying to hold something together that was never meant to cost you yourself. True sacrifice in a relationship is not about giving up your core values, dreams, or self-respect. It's not about changing everything about you just to keep someone else comfortable. It's not about always being the one to bend, the one to apologize first, the one to carry the emotional weight while the other stays unchanged. Sacrifice becomes unhealthy when it's one-sided, when it becomes a pattern, when it starts to chip away at your identity. A relationship should be a shared space where both people feel seen, heard, and valued, not one where love becomes conditional on how much you're willing to lose. When you consistently erase your needs in order to avoid conflict or keep peace, you begin to live in fear rather than love. You become hyper, aware of their moods, walking on emotional eggshells, measuring your words, shrinking your spirit. You begin to disappear, hoping that maybe your absence will make things easier, but the more you disappear for someone else, the more distant you become from yourself, and that distance doesn't bring closeness. It builds quiet resentment, internal exhaustion, and a deep sense of being lost. Healthy relationships require communication, mutual effort, and the willingness to adjust, but they never ask you to disappear. Real love values your individuality. It embraces your growth. It supports your evolution. When you love someone, yes, you make space for their needs, but not at the cost of silencing your own. You can give without draining yourself. You can support without surrendering your own foundation. You can be in love without erasing your existence to maintain it. You teach others how to love you by how you love yourself. The way you treat yourself sets the standard for every relationship in your life. If you constantly neglect your own needs, speak to yourself harshly, and tolerate disrespect in the name of love, you're sending a silent message that this is what you believe you deserve. People mirror what they observe. If you consistently show up for yourself with compassion, respect, and honesty, others begin to understand the level of care required to be part of your life. But if you abandon yourself in the pursuit of being accepted, you show others that it's okay to do the same. When you don't value your voice, others won't listen to it either. When you hide your pain just to avoid being a burden, others assume you're fine. When you forgive too quickly without addressing the hurt, people learn they can hurt you without consequence. Loving yourself isn't just about affirmations or spa days, it's about boundaries, self-respect, and refusing to accept less than what aligns with your worth. It's about not begging for love, not proving your value, not staying in spaces that require you to shrink in order to fit. People treat you based on the energy you radiate. If you carry yourself with quiet confidence and self-awareness, you naturally attract those who respect that presence. But if you settle for crumbs, you'll always find someone willing to give you less. The energy you give yourself is what tells the world how to approach you. The way you protect your time, the way you speak about yourself, the way you hold your own boundaries, all of that becomes a blueprint for how others show up for you. This isn't about being hard to love. It's about understanding that love isn't about pleasing everyone at the expense of your peace. It's about recognizing that the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one you have with yourself. When you begin to honor that relationship, when you nurture your own growth and healing, you stop tolerating behavior that once felt acceptable. You become less available for chaos, less open to disrespect, less willing to settle for inconsistency. You start to attract people who meet you at the level you've met yourself, You start to embody the love you deserve, and in doing so, you show others exactly how they must love you to balance presence with individuality. In a meaningful relationship, being emotionally and physically present is essential, but presence should never come at the cost of losing your individuality. So often, people believe that being deeply in love means doing everything together, making every decision as one, sharing every interest, and aligning every goal. While connection and shared experiences are powerful, they are not a substitute for personal identity. A healthy relationship thrives not when two people become one, but when two whole individuals stand side by side, choosing each other without losing themselves. Being present means showing up with your heart, listening, engaging, being available in the moments that matter. It means understanding your partner's world and allowing them into yours. But being present doesn't mean abandoning the hobbies that light you up, the friendships that ground you, or the goals that define your path. Presence isn't possession. It's not constant proximity or full-time availability. It's about depth over duration, about showing up authentically, not just constantly. When we confuse presence with ownership, we begin to blur the lines between intimacy and control. Individuality in a relationship means you still have a voice, a space, and a self beyond the relationship. It means you still read books they don't read, listen to music they don't love, and have thoughts they might not fully understand. It's about continuing to grow as a person, not just as a partner. When two people can stand firmly in who they are and still choose to grow together, that's where the most lasting connections form. You're not looking for someone to complete you or to become your entire world. You're looking for someone who respects your world while building something new with you. Too much togetherness without room to breathe leads to dependency, and dependency often morphs into resentment. If you always feel obligated to be there in every moment, if you begin to feel guilty for needing space, then presence has turned into pressure. The healthiest love is the one that encourages you to remain rooted in your essence, not dissolve into the other. It's the kind that holds space for your solitude, your passions, your journey, and trusts that the bond you share doesn't weaken in your absence, but strengthens through your wholeness. Your value isn't defined by their validation. So many people live their lives waiting for approval, constantly measuring their worth based on someone else's attention, affection, or recognition. When a relationship becomes the mirror through which you see yourself, your self-esteem begins to rise and fall based on their moods, their opinions, and their treatment of you. But your value is not something that shifts because someone sees it or fails to. It is inherent, steady, and independent of the way others choose to perceive you. When you rely on someone else to validate your worth, you give away your power. You allow them to become the judge of your enoughness. Their silence makes you question your voice. Their withdrawal makes you question your presence. Their indifference makes you question your significance. And in doing so, you slowly disconnect from the truth of who you are. You begin to twist yourself to gain approval, walking on emotional eggshells, hoping that if you just try harder, love harder, or become someone different, they'll finally give you the validation you crave. But needing someone to prove your worth is a dangerous place to be, because it's a game that can never be won without losing yourself. Your value isn't determined by who stays or who leaves, by who loves you or who lets you go. It's not tied to how much attention you receive, how often they call, or whether they make you a priority. Your worth is not transactional. It doesn't need confirmation. It doesn't need applause. It just is. The more you believe this, the less you'll chase people who can't see you clearly. You'll stop shrinking to fit into spaces that never deserved you to begin with. When you hold onto your value, you start choosing differently. You begin to say no to half loves, to inconsistency, to emotional crumbs dressed as affection. You no longer beg to be seen because you've already seen yourself. You no longer fight to be chosen because you've already chosen your own peace. The people who truly deserve you are the ones who recognize your value without needing to be convinced. The ones who don't ask you to prove your worth but reflect it back to you through respect, consistency, and care. The best relationships don't change you, they reveal you. Real love doesn't demand that you become someone else in order to be accepted. It doesn't ask you to adjust your identity, mute your voice, or mask your flaws. Instead, it creates a space safe enough for you to take off the armor you've worn for years. It invites you to show up fully as you are, without the fear of being too much or not enough. It encourages you to explore the parts of yourself that you once buried to fit in, to belong, or to survive. The right connection doesn't try to mold you into a new shape. It allows you to return to your original form. In so many relationships, people lose themselves trying to be the version of a partner they think will be loved. They change their opinions, bury their passions, and adopt habits that aren't true to who they are. They compromise not just in actions, but in identity, and with every step further from their authentic self, they begin to feel hollow. But when a relationship is grounded in respect and presence, it acts like a mirror, not one that distorts, but one that reflects with clarity. It shows you who you are, what you value, and where you need healing, not by judging, but by standing beside you as you evolve. The best kind of love challenges you to grow, not by force, but through inspiration. It reminds you of your purpose. It reignites forgotten dreams. It holds your contradictions with kindness. It doesn't shame your scars or silence your sensitivity. It sees the light in you, even when you're surrounded by darkness, and helps you believe in it again. And in that belief, you begin to rediscover the strength, creativity, and courage that had always been there. You stop pretending, you stop performing, you simply become. When love is rooted in truth, it becomes a journey back to yourself. It doesn't suffocate your uniqueness or expect perfection. It makes space for your humanity. It doesn't confuse comfort with control or loyalty with limitation. It allows you to stretch, to change, to expand without fear that growth will threaten the bond. The right relationship doesn't ask you to be less. It dares you to be more, not more for them, but more of yourself, more of who you were always meant to be.